You're listening to The Play Pouch. Welcome back, everyone. Today we are launching our first Platform Wars show, and we are discussing the benefits and cons of consoles and PCs, which is better. This is probably going to be a good discussion, so stick around. But before we get started, if you like our show, give us a subscribe, click the notification bell, click the thumbs up button, and leave us a comment about what you thought about the show. And let's just dive in. So, this is a war that's been going on for a very long time.
Since the beginning of time, Peter, the PC Master Race has tried to take over the world.
And it has, in certain regards. If you've got the money for it, then it sort of outperforms consoles on every level. But there are merits to having a console. And the first merit that comes to my mind is that consoles tend to be a lot more stable than PCs. So let's just kick off the battle, really. I mean, I'm sort of probably behind the PC side, and you're probably behind the console side.
Yeah, we'll give ever so quickly a little bit of background. I have a PC. I do game on the PC, but generally like 4X games, strategy games, because my PC is rather old. So even if I wanted to run the latest games, it wouldn't be a very pretty result. So because of that, I am more of a console player. And Pete, kind of the opposite for you. You've had a console before, but right now it's all about the PC for you. So that's where you're coming from, isn't it?
That's right.
So stability. Yeah, definitely. Because obviously when the developers are making for, the PlayStation 5 or the Xbox X, it's all the same hardware. So it's easier for them to do. Whereas with PC, there's so many configurations, as you know, more stuff can go wrong.
Yeah. I mean, like the consoles are built similarly, but very, very differently. It doesn't have the same kernels as the PC does, and the consoles are built to be stable. So you'll find that you'll have a lot less crashing and a lot less sort of. Well, I mean, put it this way: when you install a game on the PC, you might have to do a little tweaking. You might have to go into the directory and do some INI tweaks, or whatever. You might have to do a bit of faffing. But with the console, it's very streamlined. You install the game, and you just launch it and you play it. So on very rare occasions will the game crash on you, but that's literally, I think, 90% down to the build of the game and how it's developed. But with PC games, it's a whole new kettle of fish. I mean, even though they develop games on the PC, they develop them for the consoles, and then they have to have this sort of 6-month-year cycle of formatting it to the PC, which is a bit strange. I've always found that a bit odd.
Yeah, I mean, going back to what you said about crashes, I mean, it is game dependent. There's some console games which run flawlessly, and I mean flawlessly. But when I think about it, and I'm being honest, even though I'm kind of meant to be defending the console, and I will, as far as crashes is concerned, I generally get the same amount on both. And like it is so much game dependent. Like, I mean, like Borderlands 2, I remember that went through a period, and I'll say a period because in the end they do get patched. But even this year with one of my favorite games called Remnant, it was in a very unstable point until a certain patch came out where every time you went to a new world, so to speak, there was a 50-50 chance of it crashing. And that happened for a good couple of weeks until they patched it out. So that was just the most recent I can think of. So yeah, I do agree about the PC and the configuration, but when I just think of the crashes, I tell you what, mate, honestly, you wouldn't think so, but I probably get just as many on the console as I do when I play my PC games.
Yeah, I think it's down to the games, isn't it? I mean, Cyberpunk was a total trash heap when it launched, and then No Man's Sky was a bit of a trash heap when that launched as well. I mean, it's not immune to it.
No.
But with the PC, there's a hell of a lot of modability with the game. So you can go in, you can tweak certain files, you can, mod things and all that kind of other stuff to try and patch over issues. I like, if you take Cyberpunk for an example, I didn't really have any issues with Cyberpunk on the PC. And I with the Series X version of Cyberpunk, it was fairly stable as well. So it is down to the developers. It really is. I mean, like you look at Rockstar; their games are pretty solid on all platforms. So it just goes to show. But for PC, I've always liked the versatility, the flexibility of PC games, the fact that you can add mods, the fact that you can sort of, hack your way into cheating if you want to. If single player games only, fellas. Let's not all suggest that we cheat when we multiplayer. We don't really multiplayer much at all anyway. So, but yeah, I do prefer the PC because with console, you there's not much flexibility. You take the game as it is, or you'll leave it.
I think one of the biggest selling points of the consoles, I think, and I don't generally, it is a bit of a generalization what I'm going to say, but I think there is enough merit there where for a layman, you're going to go with the console because it's the easiest.
Yeah.
You haven't got to worry about all the things. You haven't got to worry about updating drivers, making sure your DirectX is at a certain point, making sure this is that, this is that, this is that. A lot of people, maybe more on the casual side, but that's fine. Maybe even more on people who are just not technology. They're not very good at technology. They just want to press the button on the Xbox or the PlayStation and play the games. Yeah. And I can understand that, and that is a big selling point, and it is dependent on the person. Definitely on the casual side, they're going to go to the consoles. I think on the younger side, probably they're also going to go on the consoles. Also, and this is a fact, dude, that PCs are quite expensive if you want to have a gaming PC. You have to spend a lot of money in the consoles. Well, certainly not cheap, not anymore. They are cheaper. So that also has got to be taken into consideration as well.
Yeah, the pricing is such a huge issue. Yeah. I mean, it's no secret that Sony and Microsoft make a loss on their consoles. They're sort of priced at a sort of £300-400 ratio, area, and the components that are involved in those consoles are worth a lot more. Let's face it. And if you were to try and get those same components or a similar spec on the PC, you'd be spending anywhere between $1,000 and $2,000, probably more like $2,000.
Yeah, and the consoles are just it's hassle, dude. It is. They're much less hassle. But it's one of those things where if you're prepared to put the time into it, then you will have a better experience on 95% of the occasions, with the occasional bad port, because you know as well as I do that can happen on the PC. The PC will sometimes get a terrible port.
Yeah.
I think, what was it, The Last of Us Part 1? I think that came out in that was a terrible port, and I think there was a Batman game a couple of years ago that was fine on the consoles, and for some reason the PC version was so bad, I think they had to recall it. So it doesn't happen often, but every now and again, they'll port something from the console, and it'll just be a dreadful port for the PC. But more often than not, you're going to get the better game on the PC. I can't say otherwise. I'd be stupid of me to say that's not true. It is. But in order to get those results, a lot of the times you have to fiddle with stuff, as you just said. And I think a lot of people, especially those who are a little bit overwhelmed by technology, and I can be like that, as we found out the other day, I can be a bit like that myself.
Yeah.
On certain things to do with PCs, I can see something, say, this is just doing my head in right now. And it's easy just to put a console on. So I can see the appeal of that. But I can't fight a case whereas if you played both games, if you played a game on both systems, right, the PC's more or less always going to come out on top. There's no getting around that in every way. I can't fight that battle and win, so I'll concede that one to you, Pete.
Yeah, you can ramp up the graphics. You can sort of, push your PC system to its limits and stuff, like I do with all these new games. I squeeze every last teraflop or whatever it is out of it. And, I mean, it's a rich person's game, really, the PC. And, you could sort of get someone to build it for you. You can get advice and all that kind of thing, but unless you get a pre-build sort of PC, you're going to have to put it together yourself, or you're going to have to pay extra to get someone to do it for you. If you're not technically savvy in that way.
Yeah.
I personally, I mean, I can do it, but I'm just terrified that I'll fuck something up, and
Yeah.
so I will always sort of pay someone else to do it for me, just because I don't want to, deal with it myself. So, I mean, my PC needs a few upgrades, which I'm waiting for the cash for. So, yeah, I mean, like the consoles are good for just sort of plugging and playing.
Yeah.
So that's the good side of it. The PCs are for advanced users, I would say. If you want to, get like a better experience, if you want like good VR, and you've got the money for it, then yeah. I mean, but the pricing is a huge aspect of it, and the actual games are as well. Really, it all depends on what game you play.
It's interesting that you talk about the pricing. Is that generally the PC games are generally they used to be cheaper than the console games.
Yeah.
But as I was doing my Christmas shopping for you, Pete,
Mm.
I was trying to find a game for you, the PC game, and the same game on the consoles was half the price of the PC game, and that really took me back because I was used to PC games being cheaper. So there seems to be a shift
Yeah, definitely.
that I didn't notice because I don't buy that many PC games. Because I was shopping to try and find you something, I was seeing the same game for half price on the consoles, and it was like, I swear this is the opposite it used to be. So
they've kind of sort of started to match each other, haven't they? With like sort of disc based or console digital. You don't really get much sort of PC discs based games anymore, do you?
No.
So yeah, they're trying to sort of balance things out, of course, and I guess this is what we wanted. Everyone sort of seems to like digital. I'm all right with it, but like if there's a sort of an apocalypse or a catastrophe, and we're running on generators and stuff, and there's no internet, then you don't really have a games library because unless it will play offline, which they're trying to change as well. So like with I don't know what the situation is with console and PC and offline games. But like,
it depends. Like, because if you're playing like a Game Pass game, for example, you have to sign. You've got to be online all the time, or you can't get access to your Game Pass games.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, the pricing, it's a bit more even than it used to be. I used to consider that a advantage for the PC because generally, at least on new releases, I remember, like on Steam, you could get a PC game for 30 quid, and on Xbox it would be 45, 50. Yeah. That's not the case anymore. So they have evened it out. Not sure it's for the best for the consumer, but they have evened it out.
That's the thing about having a disc-based game and a digital game. I mean, I've always preferred having the disc because even if you do have no internet, you can still at least play. But that's not really the case anymore. So that's a factor for both the PC and the console. But I mean, when it comes to the two different platforms, PC has always been ahead over the console generations, and again, it's all down to price.
Would you say it's about 5 years? How big a gap, for example, is the Xbox X, in your opinion, to the top range PC? Would you say like 5 years ago, a 5-year-old PC has the same power as an Xbox X? Or is it not as far as that? Am I being too harsh on that?
Well, okay. So if you take the Xbox Series X right now, as it is, to have a PC that's the equivalent power, you'd be looking at something like 1,500 quid.
Really? That
12 to 1,500 quid, yeah. I mean, that price might have come down, but yeah, I mean, like to get something that's twice as powerful as the Xbox Series X, then you are looking at somewhere along the $2,000 mark. So, I mean, and it's really just two elements of the PC. It's the CPU and the GPU. That's the crux of it, really. If GPUs can range from 200 quid to $2,000, and the CPUs are a lot wider in range. You can get like a decent Ryzen 5 CPU right now for 150 quid. But if you decided to go for a top end Threadripper Pro, you're looking at like $3,000 just for the CPU.
So you think the consoles then are a decent value for their money then, all things considered?
Excellent value. Mm-hmm. Excellent value, because the corporations are making a loss on them. They're making a huge loss because they're banking on you buying the consoles and then spending loads of money on games and add-ons and DLC and microtransactions and all these bits and bobs, and it all adds up. So that's where they're actually making their money. And don't forget, people, that you wanted this, It's just like you didn't stop these. I mean, like Microsoft tried making the Xbox console always online, and we didn't like that. So they were like, okay, no, we're sorry. But they've done it again without us realizing it, or maybe we have, with the fact that games have to be always connected, like Forza. Forza always has to be online, or you can't work on your career. And, there are other games as well and that's the case for both the console and the PC space. Now, I don't like that. I don't like having a single player game that has to be online to be able to be played. I think that's absolutely disgusting, and I think that's one thing that needs to be eradicated. But they want you to be connected, so they can just sort of drip feed you shit all the time. And I just, I am a bit worried about what the future holds for gaming. So I think we need to step up a little bit and say, no, we don't want this and we don't want that for both platforms. So,
I mean, my biggest gripe when Microsoft tried to do that a couple of years ago, more than a couple of years ago, it's like 5 years now, was the whole used game market, because that really does affect people on the poorer side. Look, if you're middle class or something like that, right, you don't care, right? You don't care for 50 quid, right? You can afford to spend 50 quid, play the game once, and then probably not even bother selling it, right? You'll just put it on your shelf. But if you're on the lower income, mate, if you play a game, you finish it, you're probably going to want to trade it into like CX, right? Or sell it on eBay, get half your money back. And that's what you have to do when you don't have much money. That's what you have to do. So Microsoft taking that from people, that was, for me, that was my biggest gripe. And that was so anti-consumer.
Yeah,
I can't tell you. And I still really haven't forgiven them from that. It still leaves a bad taste in my mouth. They wanted to get rid of used games because it was going to affect people. And I consider myself this on the lower spectrum of how much money they've got, right? So it wasn't going to affect the middle. It was only going to affect people with low income. So screw Microsoft for that. And never defended them and won't never defend them for that. But it's kind of off topic, really. As for the PC console, I mean, I think we can easily agree that PC, if you've got the money for both, you're going to get a PC. If you're super rich or even middle class, you're probably going to get both. I'm not middle class. I do have both, but my PC is a very aging PC. I couldn't afford to go and just get a new PC, really, or really, so I'm forced to play low games with a very low load, so to speak, on a PC, right? I've got to kind of I can only really play those kind of games. So for me, there's only certain kind of games like 4X games, strategy games, lesser demanding games that I can play. And then when it comes to like first person shooters or stuff like that, I can play on my console. So I guess I'm lucky. I've kind of got the best of both worlds, but my PC is very lacking. So
yeah. So I mean, like if we take a look at the flexibility, as we've said before, consoles, you get what you get, and that's it. If you don't like the game, there's no chance of being able to tweak things.
No.
And with the PC, you can. There's always something that you're able to do. There's always some modder who's hacked into the game. And
that's a big thing, Pete, that we really should. I mean, we've already done a cast on modding per se, but people listening, do not underestimate the power of mods, not only to improve the games, and fix bugs, but also to increase the replayability of certain games tenfold. And in consoles, it is something I wish was in. I don't think they'll ever properly put it on consoles, but it is something that I really wish was there on consoles. It's such a loss not having it on consoles.
Elder Scrolls on the consoles has modding, and but there's only so much that you can do with it. And for the Series X, you've got the greatest sort of range of power that you can sort of tweak Skyrim with. But yeah, when it comes to the PC, you can just go a lot further and have more fun with it, actually.
Yeah, definitely.
So, I mean, all things considered, I do prefer the PC. I understand the convenience of the plug and play with consoles, and I understand that a lot of the market target audience is aligned with that. So, but I personally just, because I'm technically savvy. I've been working with computers ever since I was 15 years old.
Yeah.
And, I know the ins and outs of it. I may not be able to be to build one or be comfortable building one, but at least I know PC's limits, and, I can detect issues, I can fix issues.
But some people, Pete, as you just said, some people really don't want that hassle, do they? And that's why they go to the consoles.
Yeah. I mean, like, I've been that way as well. I mean, I ended up buying a Series X and then realizing there's not many games I want to play for it. So I sold it for a profit at the time. But yeah, I mean, I do get it. People just, don't want to even have to sort of think about patching a game or sort of updating things and what have you.
It's actually, Pete, that's actually a very good leading on to another point that we can talk about quickly. Are consoles, and this is both of the big boys, are they just becoming mini PCs? Patching, all these things that you're talking about, and it's just like it's all slowly coming onto the consoles.
Yeah, they are. I mean, like, you can't install, Windows on an Xbox, for instance.
No.
It's impossible. You just can't do it. They're built differently, but they're using the same components. There's some RAM chips. There's a CPU, a GPU, a motherboard, blah blah blah. But yeah, it just doesn't have the right components to be able to run an operating system of that complexity.
But they are more like mini PCs than ever before, aren't they? Like when you go back and you look at the old Nintendos and the old Sega, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They used to be significantly different. Now they're just a little bit different. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. I mean, like, you could argue that they always have been PC based, but the gap between power between PC and consoles was huge back in the day when you had a 360 or a PS2 or whatever. But nowadays you've got like the PS5 and the Series X, and there's the Series X is what, 6-8 teraflops, something like that, and your average PC is going to be that now as well. So yeah, they are just definitely sort of leveling out at the moment. So, people just want more power with their consoles, and if they want more power, then they're going to have to go to the PC space.
And something also I've noticed, because I am on a more console side. I mean, if somebody said, "What are you, more of a console player or a PC player?" I'll say console, but I am somebody who does have kind of a bit of both. And one thing I have noticed in a lot of menus of console games, there's never going to be as many options as there is in PC games in regards to tweaking, but there is more tweaking than there used to be in console games. I mean, even the ideas of performance modes or frames per seconds, they just were not in consoles at all, dude. Those things just were not ever included at all as options.
No, they're very sort of recent in terms of the generation. Yeah.
So there's more options in the menus. There's more options than ever before. Still nowhere near the level of PCs where you can
Yeah.
tweak nearly everything, but a lot more where they give you a little bit more options, which is good because that is one of the main drawbacks of the consoles, as you've said. But slowly they are introducing more. It'll never be as much as the PCs, but it's not quite as far away as it used to be. That's why in my mind I am starting to consider um, this generation of consoles more like PCs, and I will probably guess that the next generation, whenever it comes out, might even be even closer than this one to PCs. I mean, are we going to get to the point really when they just are mini PCs? Are they going to go to that level? Do you think, or they always going to be a significant step away?
It all depends on the market prices of these components. If the components come down in price massively, then a lot more people are going to have high-powered PCs, and you're going to get consoles that are a lot more powerful with the same price point. But see, unless that changes, then it's just going to stay the same. You're going to have a PC, a console that comes out in a few years' time for the next generation that's going to be on par with roughly with the state of where the PC specs are at that time. So unless components come down, you're not going to see a shift. I think it's just going to be on a similar level for the next generation. So
I mean, then there's never going to be equality, is there? You're never going to get a console which they release and say, oh yeah, look, it's as powerful as the latest PC. That will never happen, will it?
Well, as I said, it all depends on whether, I mean, like if you get like the 4090, for instance, the GPU NVIDIA RTX 4090 for £100, then that's not going to happen. I mean, like that card will come down at that price at some point, but that's not going to be for a very long time.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, like unless components go for really cheap, we're not going to see a shift in terms of old consoles are a lot more powerful or PCs are a lot more powerful. I think now it's just going to stay balanced to a sort of a fairly equal degree. So, I mean, that's just the way it is at the moment.
Yeah.
And there's an article that I read somewhere a few years ago that scientists worked out that the ultimate level of realism is reached when computers' power is at 50 teraflops or something. If anyone knows different, then let us know in the comments section. But I have heard that it's around the 50 teraflops mark. And that's with if you had like a Threadripper Pro CPU in a console and NVIDIA's new 7 series 790 or something that's going to be out in 2040 or something, then it's going to be huge, and we will get there eventually, but it just comes down to the pricing of the components. These companies in China or Silicon Valley who are developing these things, they just need to make them cheaper. That's all.
Yeah. So as it stands, and probably for the foreseeable future, the consoles are always going to be a step away, but a step away in pricing as well. So I don't really foresee that changing, to be honest. I do think that it is kind of the status quo. It's good that there's options for everyone. I mean, if you do have the money, why wouldn't you get the PC? You kind of would, because it does do everything better than the consoles. There's no getting around that.
Yeah.
But, if you're younger, for example, or you're on a low income, then you're not going to go wrong with the consoles. More often than not, you can get a good experience. Yeah, there's certain games which certain developers do release subpar games on the consoles, which could be better. But more often than not, you can get a good experience on the console. And I saw the Xbox over Black Friday going for as cheap as $340, which is pretty good considering how much they used to be. So, £340 for the Xbox X is pretty damn good, really. So
for what it can do,
yeah. Okay, then, guys. I suppose that's it. Anything left to say, Pete? You want to defend your PC Master Race one last time for us humanoids?
It's so much better, bro. I mean, like I was able to tweak Starfield to get me 60 frames a second.
You actually got to play that half decently, or I'm stuck with them chugging away. Yeah, I know.
I mean, I'll say, look, it's between 40 and 60 frames per second upon release, and that was with some heavy tweaking. Now, I've got twin 1070 Ti's and a Ryzen 7 1700X CPU. So at 32 gigs of RAM. So it's not the latest system by a long shot. But even then, after spending a couple of hours, I was able to get a decent 50 to 60 frame rate in all areas. And that's the difference I'm talking about. With console, you get what you get.
Yeah.
So there are benefits and there's pros and cons to both platforms.
Yeah, and I said it is game specific. Starfield, for some reason, offer no options at all in that area. But I know I'm playing Final Fantasy VII Remake right now, and that's on the PlayStation 5. And there's a performance mode and a quality mode. In performance mode, I can play it on 60. Yeah. So, you know, a different kind of game. It's not an open world game, so maybe it's not fair to completely compare it to Starfield. But, you know, the consoles are beginning, a lot more of the games are beginning to give you more options, as I said earlier. So you've got to take that into account.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, everyone. So let us know what your favourite platform is. Tell us why.
Console.
Whatever, mate. It's PC Master Race is always going to win.
Yeah.
So yeah, let us know what you think. We'd love to hear from you. And if you like our show, please give us a subscribe, slap the thumbs up button, click the notification bell so you'll always know when a new episode comes out. So until our next episode, we're going to say adieu.
See you later, guys.
Ta-da.